I didn't think much of it at first. People delete messages all the time. Half-typed thoughts, second guesses, things that don't feel worth saying out loud. That's what I told myself, anyway. But something about the way she smiled stuck with me. It was late, maybe close to midnight. We were both in bed, lights off, just the glow from our phones cutting through the dark. I was half scrolling, half asleep when I glanced over at her. She was turned slightly away, but I could see her face in the dim light. Focused, soft. There was this small, almost private smile on her lips. Not the kind she gave me when we joked around. Not the kind she wore when we watched movies together. It felt quieter, intimate in a way that didn't include me. Her thumbs were moving fast. Longer message than usual. I remember thinking, who is she even texting this late? Then she noticed me looking. The smile disappeared immediately. Not dramatically, just gone, like it had never been there. She tilted her phone down, hesitated for half a second, and then deleted it. I watched the whole thing happen. What? She asked a little too quickly. Nothing, I said. Who are you texting? She shrugged. Just work stuff. Tomorrow's meeting. At midnight. I nodded like it made sense. Because technically it did. She had been more stressed about work lately. Longer hours. More calls. It wasn't impossible. But the feeling didn't go away. It sat in my chest, quiet but heavy. Not loud enough to accuse her of anything, but persistent enough that I couldn't fully relax again. I tried to scroll, tried to distract myself, but my attention kept drifting back to her. She was on a different app now, less engaged, like she had already said what she needed to say, just not to me. That night should have ended there. Just a small, forgettable moment. It didn't, because once you notice something like that, you start noticing everything. The next few days, I paid more attention. Not intentionally at first, but like when you hear a strange noise in your car and suddenly every little sound feels suspicious. She started keeping her phone face down more often. Not always, just enough that it stood out. She used to leave it anywhere, unlocked, careless. Now it was always within reach. I told myself I was overthinking. We'd been together for 3 years. Lived together for almost 2. There was history, routines, shared habits. We knew each other's rhythms. At least, I thought we did. But something had shifted. Subtle, like the angle of a picture frame being just slightly off. You can't always explain it, but you feel it every time you walk past. She laughed at her phone more. Quiet laughs, like she didn't want to draw attention. And when I'd ask what was funny, she'd give vague answers. Just something stupid. Work meme. Nothing really. It was always nothing. And that word started to mean less and less. One evening, about a week after that night, we were having dinner. Nothing special, just takeout and some show playing in the background. She kept checking her phone. Not constantly, but enough that I noticed. At one point, it buzzed, and she picked it up immediately. Her face lit up for a second, then she caught herself and neutralized it. That same shift. That same small erasure of something real. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. Just work. Again. I don't know what made me push it then. Maybe it was the repetition. Maybe it was the way she didn't even try to make it sound convincing anymore. Who exactly from work texts you this much? I asked. She looked up at me, and for a split second, I saw something in her expression. Not guilt. Not exactly. More like calculation. Why does it matter? She said. That stung more than I expected. It doesn't, I said quickly. I was just asking. She nodded, like that settled it, and went back to eating. Conversation over. But it wasn't over for me. Because that was the first time she didn't reassure me. Before, if I ever sounded even slightly unsure, she'd fill the gap immediately. Explain, laugh it off, pull me closer. This time, she just closed the door. And I stayed quiet after that. Not because I felt satisfied, but because I didn't want to sound paranoid. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who reads too much into things, who ruins something good by questioning it to death. So I told myself it was fine. That I trusted her. That whatever I thought I saw that night didn't mean anything. But trust doesn't feel like convincing yourself over and over again. It feels easy. And this didn't. I wish I could say I let it go after that. That I trusted her, moved on, and everything went back to normal. It didn't. What changed wasn't just her behavior, it was mine. That quiet, persistent feeling turned into something sharper. Not quite suspicion yet, but close enough that it started shaping how I saw everything. I began noticing patterns. She started staying up later than me more often. At first, it made sense. Deadlines, projects, all that. But the thing was, She wasn't working in the living room anymore, where she used to spread her laptop and papers. Now she stayed in bed, under the blanket, phone in hand. The light from the screen would flicker against the wall long after I turned away. Sometimes I pretend to be asleep and listen. Not to anything specific, there was no sound, but to the absence of it. The quiet tapping of her thumbs, the occasional pause, and once, a soft exhale that almost sounded like a laugh she swallowed before it could exist. I didn't confront her. Instead, I started doing something I'm not proud of. I started testing reality in small ways. One night, I woke up, or pretended to, and shifted closer to her. Not abruptly, just enough that she'd notice. Her reaction was instant. The phone locked. The screen went dark. Her body stilled. "Did I wake you?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but too alert for someone who'd supposedly just been scrolling mindlessly. "Yeah," I muttered. "What time is it?" "Almost 1," she said. "Still working?" I didn't ask anything else. But I didn't fall back asleep either. Because people who are just working don't react like they're hiding something. After that, the distance between us became harder to ignore. It wasn't dramatic. No fights, no slammed doors, no accusations thrown across the room. Just absence. The kind that grows quietly until it fills the space between two people completely. We stopped touching as much. It wasn't a conscious decision, at least not on my end. It just happened. Fewer casual brushes in the kitchen. Fewer moments of leaning into each other on the couch. Even when we sat side by side, it felt like there was an invisible boundary neither of us crossed. I tried to bridge it a couple of times. Suggested we go out, like we used to. Grab drinks, walk around, do something spontaneous. She agreed, but her energy was different. Distracted, like she was physically there, but her attention kept drifting somewhere else. Her phone, usually. I remember one night in particular. We were at this small bar we used to love. Nothing fancy, dim lights, good music, the kind of place where conversations feel easier. Where they used to. She went to the bathroom and left her phone on the table. That alone felt unusual. For a second, I just stared at it. It wasn't locked. I didn't touch it. I want to be clear about that. I didn't go through her messages, didn't open anything. But the fact that I even considered it, that I sat there debating whether I should, told me everything about where my head was at. I wasn't trusting her anymore. And that realization hit harder than anything I'd noticed so far. Because it meant something was already broken. She came back, picked up her phone almost immediately, and gave me a small smile. "Everything okay?" she asked. It was the same question I'd asked her days ago. "Yeah," I said. But it wasn't. A few days later, things escalated in a way I didn't expect. She told me she had a work dinner. Last minute. Apparently important. Again, not impossible. Her job could be unpredictable. "Do you want me to come?" I asked, half joking. She shook her head too quickly. "No, it's just team stuff. You'd be bored." That made sense. Still, something about how fast she dismissed the idea stuck with me. "What time will you be back?" I asked. "Late," she said. "Don't wait up." I nodded. That night, I tried to distract myself. Watched something, scrolled, even considered going out myself. But I didn't. I stayed home. And I waited. Hours passed. Midnight. 1. 2. No message. No update. At some point, I stopped pretending I wasn't concerned. I texted her, "Everything okay?" No reply. Another hour went by. Then, finally, around 3 in the morning, I heard the door. She walked in quietly, like she didn't want to wake me. But I was already sitting up in bed. She froze when she saw me. "You're still awake?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "I texted you." She glanced at her phone, then back at me. "Sorry, I didn't see it. It got busy." Her voice was steady, but her eyes didn't hold mine for long. "How was it?" I asked. "Fine," she said. "Just work stuff." "Always work." She went to the bathroom, and when she came back, she smelled different. Not in a way I could immediately define. Just unfamiliar. Like a scent that didn't belong to our usual routines. I almost said something. Almost. But instead, I just lay back down and turned away. Because by then, the feeling wasn't quiet anymore. It was loud, and I didn't know if I was ready to hear what it was trying to tell me. I started keeping track after that night. Not in some obsessive, spreadsheet kind of way. Nothing that structured. But mentally, I began collecting moments. Small inconsistencies. Things that didn't quite line up. She slept later the next morning than usual. Said she was exhausted from the dinner. That part made sense. What didn't was how detached she felt. Usually, after being out late, she'd be softer the next day. A little clingy, even, like she wanted to reconnect. This time, it was the opposite. She moved around the apartment like I wasn't really there. Polite, but distant. I watched her pour coffee without asking if I wanted any. That alone felt wrong. We'd built our relationship on small, automatic gestures like that. Things you don't think about because they're just part of you. And when they disappear, it's like losing a language you didn't realize you were speaking. Rough night? I asked, trying to sound normal. Yeah, she said, not looking at me. A lot of talking. With who? I asked before I could stop myself. She paused, just for a second. Clients. Team. You know. I nodded, but the pause stayed with me. That day, I noticed something else. She started taking her phone with her everywhere. Not just into the bathroom. She'd always done that. But even for things like taking out the trash or grabbing the mail. It became an extension of her hand. At one point, she left it on the kitchen counter while she went to get something from the bedroom. I wasn't planning to look. I really wasn't. But then it buzzed. Just once. The screen lit up. I saw a name. Not saved with anything obvious. Just a first name. Daniel. And beneath it, part of a message. Last night was. That was all I got before the screen dimmed again. My chest tightened in a way I hadn't felt before. Not suspicion anymore. Not unease. This was something else. Something heavier. I stepped back from the counter like I'd touched something hot. When she came back, she picked up her phone immediately. Her eyes flicked over the screen, then briefly to me. Anything important? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She shook her head. No, just work. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so obviously not true. And yet she said it with the same calm certainty she always did. Daniel from work? I asked. There was again that pause. He's new, she said. Joined a couple of weeks ago. Seems like you guys talk a lot. She shrugged. We're on the same project. I nodded, but I could feel something shifting inside me. Because now I had a name. And names make things real. The next few days were tense. Not outwardly. We still functioned. Still talked. Still ate together. Still existed in the same space. But everything felt like it was happening on the surface. Underneath, there was pressure building. I started noticing how often that name appeared. Not always visible, but implied. The way her expression changed when she read certain messages. The way she'd step into another room to respond sometimes. One evening, I decided to test something again. Do you want to watch something? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Sure. We sat on the couch, picked a movie, and for the first 20 minutes, everything felt almost normal. She leaned slightly against me. I let myself believe, just for a moment, that maybe I was wrong. Then her phone buzzed. She stiffened. Didn't pick it up right away. Just let it sit there on the coffee table, screen facing down. Get it, I said. It's fine, she replied quickly. It might be work. I'll check later. That didn't sound like her at all. You always check, I said. She looked at me then, really looked at me. And there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not guilt. Not fear. Defensiveness. Why are you paying so much attention to my phone? She asked. The question landed harder than anything else. Because you're acting different, I said, more honestly than I intended. Her jaw tightened slightly. I'm just busy. That's not all, I said. Silence stretched between us. The movie kept playing in the background, voices and music filling the space we weren't speaking in. Finally, she reached for her phone, checked it, and then stood up. I need some air, she said. And just like that, she walked out. I sat there, staring at the door after it closed, feeling something settle into place inside me. Not clarity, something colder. Because in that moment, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. It wasn't just that she was hiding something. It was that she was choosing not to let me in anymore. And whatever was happening, whatever Daniel meant, it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a direction. One she was already moving in. Without me. She didn't come back for almost an hour. I didn't follow her. I thought about it, stood up at one point, even grabbed my jacket. But something stopped me. Not pride, not exactly. More like a quiet realization that if I had to chase her just to understand what was happening between us, then something was already too far gone. So I stayed. When she finally walked back in, her face looked composed. Too composed. Like she had taken that hour to reorganize herself into something controlled and unreadable. Sorry, she said. I just needed to clear my head. I nodded. About what? She hesitated, then sighed. Work. Everything's just a lot right now. There it was again. That same explanation, stretched thin from overuse. I didn't argue. Not because I believed her, but because I was starting to understand that the truth, whatever it was, wasn't something she was going to give me just because I asked. That night, we went to bed without saying much else. And for the first time since we'd moved in together, she didn't reach for me. No goodnight kiss. No casual touch. Nothing. Just distance. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. She was still asleep, her back turned to me. Her phone was on the nightstand, closer to her side. I stared at it longer than I want to admit. This time, I didn't look away. I picked it up. My hands didn't shake. That's something I remember clearly. I always thought if I ever did something like this, I'd feel nervous, guilty, unsure. I didn't. I felt steady, like I was finally allowing myself to see something I had been avoiding. The screen lit up easily. No password. For a second, I just looked at the home screen. Normal apps. Nothing unusual. Then I opened her messages. I didn't have to search. His name was right there at the top. Daniel. The conversation was long. Too long. I opened it, and the first thing I saw wasn't a confession or anything explicit. It was something almost worse. Familiarity. Inside jokes I didn't recognize. References to moments I wasn't part of. Still thinking about last night. That was one of his messages. Her reply? Me too. I shouldn't be. My chest tightened, but I kept reading. You seemed happy, he had written. I was, she replied. That's the problem. There it was. Not a mistake. Not confusion. Something intentional. Something she understood was wrong, and continued anyway. I scrolled further up. Messages from weeks ago. Harmless at first. Work-related. Casual. Then gradually shifting. Longer conversations. More personal topics. Late-night messages. The kind you don't send to someone who's just a coworker. And then I found the message. The one from that night. The one I had seen her typing. It was there, unsent. Still in the draft section. I opened it. I don't know how to stop thinking about you. I keep trying to tell myself it's just because things haven't felt right at home lately, but that's not it. It's you. It's how easy it feels when we talk. And I hate that I look forward to your messages more than I should. I stared at it for a long time. She hadn't sent it, but she had written it. Every word. Every thought. That wasn't an accident. That was something she had felt deeply enough to put into words and almost share. I put the phone down carefully, exactly where it had been. Then I lay back and stared at the ceiling. It's strange how quiet everything feels in moments like that. No dramatic realization. No immediate reaction. Just clarity. When she woke up, I was already in the kitchen, making coffee. 2 cups. Out of habit. She walked in, hair messy, still half asleep. Morning, she said. Morning. I handed her the cup. She took it, smiled faintly. Thanks. We stood there for a moment, drinking in silence. I watched her. Tried to reconcile the person in front of me with the messages I had just read. They didn't match. Or maybe they did, and I just hadn't wanted to see it before. Did you sleep okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. That was the moment. The easiest moment to say something. To bring it up. To confront her. But I didn't. Instead, I said, we should talk later. She froze slightly. About what? She asked. I held her gaze. Us. That one word changed everything. I saw it in her face. The shift. The understanding. She knew. Not what I had seen, specifically, but she knew the direction this was going. Okay, she said quietly. And just like that, the waiting was over. The entire day felt like it was stretched too tight. We both went through the motions. Work, messages, small interactions. But everything carried this underlying tension. Like we were actors hitting our marks, waiting for the real scene to begin. She texted me once around noon. Are we okay? I stared at the message longer than I should have. There were 100 ways I could have answered that. Honest ones. Angry ones. Careful ones. I went with, we'll talk tonight. She didn't reply after that. When I got home, she was already there. That alone felt strange. Usually, she worked later than me. But that day, she was sitting on the couch, phone in her lap, not scrolling. Just holding it. Waiting. Hey, she said when I walked in. Hey. I took off my jacket slowly, buying myself time. My mind kept replaying everything I'd seen that morning, like it was trying to prepare me for what was about to happen. But there's no real preparation for something like this. You want to talk now? She asked. I nodded. We sat across from each other. Not side by side like we usually would. That distance felt intentional, even if neither of us acknowledged it. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "You've been acting different." I almost laughed at that. "Me?" I asked. "Yes," she said, a little more firmly. Distant. Quiet. Like something's wrong. I leaned back slightly, studying her. "Something is wrong," I said. She swallowed. "Then tell me." There it was. The opening. I could have gone straight to it. Said his name. Said what I saw. Forced the truth out into the open. But instead, I asked something else. "Are you happy?" I said. She blinked, clearly not expecting that. "What? Are you happy with me?" The question hung between us. She looked down at her hands, then back up at me. I don't know," she said. And somehow, that hurt more than if she had just said no. "Since when?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. "It's not like that. It's just, things have felt off for a while." "Off how?" She exhaled slowly, like she was choosing her words carefully. "I don't feel as connected as I used to," she said. "We don't talk the same way. Everything feels routine." Routine. 3 years together, reduced to that. "And you didn't think to tell me?" I asked. "I didn't know how," she said quickly. "And I thought maybe it was just a phase. That it would pass." "And did it?" I asked. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I leaned forward slightly, resting my elbows on my knees. "Is there someone else?" I asked. The room went completely still. She looked at me, really looked at me, like she was trying to decide something. And then she said, "It's not what you think." I closed my eyes for a second. That answer. Out of all the possible responses, that was the one she chose. "Then tell me what it is," I said. She shook her head slightly. "It's just someone from work. We've been talking. That's all. That's all." I repeated. "Yes." I let out a slow breath. "Do you have feelings for him?" She hesitated. "Too long." "I don't know," she said. There it was again. "I don't know." The safest lie people tell when they don't want to admit the truth out loud. "Have you done anything?" I asked. "No," she said quickly. "Nothing physical." I swear. I believed her. And somehow, that made it worse. Because this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't something impulsive or reckless. This was something slow. Intentional. Built over time. "You were going to tell him," I said. Her expression changed instantly. "What?" "That night," I continued. "You were typing something. A long message. Then you deleted it when you saw me." Her face lost color. "I saw you," I said. "And I know it wasn't about work." Silence. Heavy, undeniable silence. "You went through my phone?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer right away, because that wasn't the real question. "Yes," I said finally. She looked away. Not angry. Not even surprised. Just resigned. "What did you see?" she asked. "Enough," I said. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like something inside her had given up. "I didn't send it," she said. "I know," I replied. "But you wanted to." That hit. I could see it. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I didn't know what I was doing," she whispered. I shook my head. "You knew exactly what you were doing," I said. And for the first time in this entire conversation, she didn't try to argue. She didn't cry. That's something I'll probably never forget. I expected tears, or at least some kind of visible breakdown. But instead, she just sat there, quiet, holding herself together like she'd already gone through the emotional part of this long before I ever knew it was happening. "I didn't plan for it," she said after a while. Her voice was calm, but thinner now. Stripped down. "It just happened." I let that sit for a second. "No," I said. "It didn't." She looked at me, tired. "You don't understand." "Then explain it to me," I replied. Another pause. Then she said, "It started as nothing. Just work. Talking about projects, complaining about deadlines. Normal stuff." I didn't interrupt. "And then it got easier to talk to him," she continued. "Easier than talking to you." That one landed hard. "Why?" I asked. She hesitated, like she knew there wasn't a good answer. "Because with you, everything felt expected," she said slowly. "Like we already knew each other too well. Every conversation felt predictable. Safe, but flat." I leaned back, letting out a quiet breath. "And with him?" She looked down again. "It felt new," she admitted. "Uncomplicated. He didn't know all the versions of me. I didn't feel like I had to be the same person I've been for the past 3 years. There it was. Not just distance. Not just attraction. Escape." "You mean you didn't feel like being my girlfriend?" I said. "That's not what I said. It's what you meant." She shook her head, frustrated now. "You're twisting it." "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally hearing it clearly." Silence settled again. Thicker this time. "What were you doing that night?" I asked after a moment. She didn't pretend not to understand. After the dinner, her lips pressed together. We went for a walk, she said. We? I repeated. Me and him. Of course. Was that planned? I asked. She hesitated. Yes. Something inside me shifted again. Not breaking, just locking into place. And you didn't think that was something I should know? I asked. I didn't think it was a big deal, she said weakly. I almost smiled at that. Not because it was funny, because it was so obviously untrue. You don't accidentally end up walking alone with someone you've been texting every night, I said. That's not a big deal. She didn't respond. Because she couldn't. Did you want something to happen? I asked. That question took longer for her to answer. I don't know, she said again. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. You do. She looked at me, eyes glassy now, but still no tears. I didn't stop it, she admitted quietly. And that was it. That was the most honest thing she'd said so far. Not a denial. Not confusion. Just acceptance. I didn't stop it. We sat there in silence for a long time after that. There wasn't much left to say. The details didn't matter anymore. Not really. Whether they kissed or not. Whether something physical almost happened or didn't. None of that changed what this was. She had already left the relationship. Just not physically. What do you want? I asked finally. She looked at me, like the question caught her off guard. I don't know, she said. I nodded. Of course she didn't. Because she hadn't been thinking about consequences. Just feelings. Just moments. I think I do, I said. Her expression shifted slightly. What do you mean? I stood up. For a second, she looked panicked. Not dramatically, but enough that I noticed. You're leaving? She asked. Yeah, I said. Not forever. Just right now. She stood up too. Can we not just talk this through? We are talking, I replied. And everything you're saying is telling me the same thing. What thing? That you're already halfway out, I said. She shook her head quickly. That's not true. Then why him? I asked. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. No answer. Because there wasn't one that didn't lead to the same conclusion. I need space, I said. She stepped closer, just slightly. And then what? I looked at her. Really looked at her. Tried to find something familiar in her face. Something that felt like us. But all I saw was someone who had already changed in ways I couldn't undo. I don't know, I said honestly. And that was the truth. For both of us. I didn't go far. Just drove around for a while, aimlessly at first. The kind of driving where you don't really register the roads, just the motion. It gave me something to focus on other than the replay of everything she'd said. Or everything she hadn't said. I kept thinking about that message she never sent. Not the words themselves, but the fact that she had written them at all. That she had felt something strongly enough to put it into a form meant for someone else. Not me. And the worst part wasn't even that she had feelings for someone else. It was that she had already started building something with him before deciding what to do with us. By the time I parked, the sun was starting to set. I hadn't realized how long I'd been out. I sat there in silence, hands resting on the steering wheel, and for the first time that day, I let myself feel it fully. Not anger. Not even betrayal, exactly. Loss. Not of her, at least not yet. But of what I thought we were. There's a specific kind of pain in realizing that the relationship you've been living in isn't the same one the other person has been experiencing. That while you were building something steady, they were slowly stepping away from it. And you didn't notice until it was already too late. I went back home later that evening. She was still there, sitting in the same spot on the couch, like she hadn't moved much since I left. Her phone was next to her, untouched this time. She looked up when I walked in. Hey, she said softly. Hey. I didn't take off my jacket right away. We just stood there for a moment, facing each other in a space that no longer felt like it belonged to both of us. Did you figure anything out? She asked. I nodded slightly. Yeah, I said. She waited. I can't do this, I continued. Her face shifted, but still, no tears. What does that mean? She asked. It means I'm not going to stay in something where I feel like I'm competing with someone who isn't even supposed to be part of this, I said. I told you. It's not like that, she replied, but there was no conviction behind it anymore. It is exactly like that, I said calmly. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. You're already there. She looked down. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said again, like repeating it would change something. I believe you, I said. And I did. But that didn't fix anything. Intent doesn't erase impact. So that's it, she asked quietly. I took a breath. This didn't start today, I said. It started the moment you stopped letting me in and didn't say anything about it. She nodded faintly, like she understood that. And I stayed. I continued. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was overthinking. But I wasn't. Silence. You chose not to tell me, I said. You chose to keep talking to him. To meet him. To write things you couldn't say to me anymore. Her eyes finally started to glisten. I didn't know how to fix us, she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. You didn't try, I said. That was the part that mattered most. Not that things got difficult, but that she had found something easier instead of working through it. She sat there, absorbing that. I can stop talking to him, she said suddenly. I shook my head. That's not the point. It is, she insisted weakly. If he's the problem, I can fix that. He's not the problem, I said. That landed harder than anything else. You are, she asked, almost defensively. No, I said. We are. Or we were. But whatever this is now, it's already changed. She went quiet again. Because she knew. You shouldn't have to choose between me and someone else, I added. And I shouldn't have to wonder if I'm enough. That was the truth I couldn't ignore anymore. Not after everything. Not after seeing it so clearly. So what happens now? She asked. I finally took off my jacket, more out of habit than comfort, and set it aside. I think we stop pretending this is still the same relationship, I said. Her voice was barely audible. And then, I looked around the apartment. At the furniture we picked together. At the small details that used to feel like home. Then back at her. And then we figure out how to let it go, I said. That's when the first tear finally fell. But by then, it didn't change anything. Because the truth is, the relationship didn't end in that moment. It ended the night I saw her smiling at a message that wasn't meant for me. Everything after that was just us catching up to it.